Hi, I'm Todd Hibbs, and I have the privilege today of a conversation with legendary Michigan State wrestling coach Grady Peninger. Coach, welcome. Nice to be with you today.
Thank you, Todd.
This is a conversation that's brought to you by the Michigan State Booster Club for Wrestling, the Michigan State Takedown Club. Coach, I thought we'd get started just by talking about where you started and how you got involved with the sport of wrestling as a youngster and where that all began for you.
Well, it seemed like it was before the ark. In the late 30s and 40s, in Clinton Junior High School, and I won the 92-pound class, and then went on to Tulsa Webster High School, and actually didn't win anything of any notoriety until I was a senior in 45. And I won the state championship at 103 in high school. And then a wealthy lady gathered up a team in Tulsa and took us to the National AAU in Dallas. And I won the National AAU title at 115.
Now, this is all in the state of Oklahoma,
That was in Dallas, Texas, the National AAU.
but where you grew up and where you
Oh, yes,
competed was in
yes.
Oklahoma.
Every-
Now,
Everything was there, yeah.
These days, everyone knows about the history of Oklahoma. Was it already firmly established in Oklahoma at that time, or was that sort of the beginning?
Yes, the legendary Oklahoma State coach, Ed Gallagher, who passed away in 1940, had set tremendous records, and the wrestling was fantastic. Although being a young kid in Tulsa, I never got to see any Oklahoma State matches.
Now, did you have aspirations of wrestling beyond high school, or is that something that came about by chance?
No, it all fell in when I was stationed in Hawaii and received a letter from the Oklahoma State coach offering me a scholarship in wrestling. And at the same time, my high school coach wanted me to go to the Naval Academy where he was going to be the assistant coach. And I elected at the time to go to Oklahoma State. Really, at the time, I didn't even know where it was, even though it was 100 miles from home.
What was that experience like for you at Oklahoma State?
It was an eye-opener. We had national champions sitting on the bench that couldn't make the team, and I was one of them. And but there were also NCAA champions that couldn't make the team sitting on the bench. It was really a meat grinder down there with so many people fighting each other. And we had tryout matches every Tuesday and every Wednesday. And then our opponents we didn't worry about. They were on the weekends. We worried more about fighting each other to get on the team.
So the toughest competition was in your practice room.
Oh boy, it was unbelievable.
Tell us
And-
some of the names, some of the people that maybe you competed with that
Oh
other
yeah,
people might recognize.
Bill Jernigan, he beat me the first 2 years, and I beat him the second 2 years after he made the Olympic team in '48. And Jack St. Clair, Dorsch, Dick Hutton, who should have been the first 4-time NCAA champion and got cheated out of it by an official. He won 3 and a second, and then he retired as a professional wrestler. We had some just great people there. Hal Moore, you know, you get me pinned right now, and I can't mention
Well,
a
you've
lot of
named-
them because I can't recall all of their names. It was back in the 40s.
Okay. Well, you've
And-
named quite a few. Now, some of the names that you mentioned certainly went on to strong international careers. Did you have much international experience in wrestling?
I had a bitter experience. Jernigan, whom I had to fight every day at Oklahoma State, was first place on the Olympic team. I was wrestling for the second spot to go to England. They were going to take 2 in a weight class. As the rules would have it at the time, I had to pin Leland Christensen of California to go on the Olympic team as an alternate and then try out on the boat going over again.
Okay.
And the black mark system ruled then that if you got so many of them, you got out. So the matches were 15 minutes long, no rest, and no penalties for stalling. And he refused to wrestle and laid and locked his hands, and I couldn't pin him. And so as a result, he got to go and I got to stay at home.
All right. Well, that was a bitter experience. Can we move on
Yeah,
to something
it
you can-
really was. I had beaten him in San Francisco the year before for the National AAU title, and I knew I could beat him. but I was not a pinner,
Okay.
and it hurt me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can move on to something you certainly weren't bitter about, and that's your coaching career. Why don't you tell us about how that started?
Well, it actually started at Oklahoma State. The head coach there gave me the job of coaching the freshmen when I was going to graduate school there.
Okay.
So that was my first coaching experience. And then I went on to Ponca City, where I was junior high school coach for 1 year. And then the old coach at the high school was retiring. And I went up to the high school in 1953, and we won the state championship in 53, and in 59, and in 60, and 2 more runner-ups in between 53 and 59.
Okay.
And we had some great kids. 2 of my most illustrious wrestlers were Doug Bluebaugh. He was my first state champion, and he was voted the outstanding wrestler. Okay. And then later on, Shelby Wilson was on the team. And they both, out of college, made the Olympic team in 1960, and they were both Olympic champions in Rome in 1960.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Doug was being pinned by Habibi and bridged over and pinned Habibi. Shelby got to the round robin with 3 people in the round robin. 2 of the guys drew with each other, so he was declared the Olympic champion.
And this was in Rome.
This was in Rome.
1960.
1960.
Did you have any sense when you were coaching these young men of the talent that they had, that they might achieve that type of a status in wrestling?
Well, you really never know, because you see so many kids bloom and so many kids fizzle in college that should have made it and for various reasons didn't. But these 2 were wheat farming kids that were used to hard work.
Sure.
And they were just tremendous athletes and tremendous individuals, and had all of the desire to do those things.
Did your path ever cross with them again later in their careers and yours?
Yeah, I hired Doug as my assistant.
Sure.
And he was at Michigan at the time.
Okay.
So I got him to come up here.
Okay.
And of course, Shelby was with Doug at Indiana a few years later, and Doug's back living in Oklahoma now, and Shelby is living in Indiana.
Okay.
But they're just fantastic individuals.
Okay. Let's talk about your move then from Oklahoma up here to Michigan State and how that came about. I understand there were some connections already from the state of Oklahoma to this part of the country.
I tell you what, it's unbelievable when you think back about it. The wrestling coach at Michigan State, Findlay Collins, his sister was married to the head coach at Ponca City High School, where I was coaching in junior high in the beginning. And so in 1960, Gail Michaels was at the Michigan State, and he was the national champion here, and we were high school teammates. And so he was instrumental in getting me invited to come up there for an interview to see about being an assistant to Findlay Collins.
All right.
And so all of that went together, and at the same time, my high school coach had now transferred from the Naval Academy to the Air Force Academy, and he wanted me to come up there and be his assistant at the Air Force Academy.
All right.
I had taken my high school team up there twice and beaten his freshmen at the Air Force Academy. So we had a good connection. I don't know whether he's trying to get even or not by getting me up there. But I had to turn him down again, and I came to Michigan State, and I've never regretted it. This was the greatest experience of my life, and coaching life, is being here at State.
Now, what year did you come to Michigan State?
1960.
Okay, in 1960 you came to State. What status was their program at that time? Had they been successful, moderately successful? Where did the team stand when you arrived?
Yeah, they had finished second in, I think, 41, 42, or 42, 43 runner-ups to Oklahoma State.
Okay.
And they had some tremendous national champions. Gail Michaels was the national champion from Tulsa, where we went to high school. The Jennings twins were both national champions here, and they were from Tulsa.
Okay.
Bill Maxwell if he's still alive, he's in California, and he was a national champion. He had the Oklahoma connection, Findlay did, and brought a bunch of kids up here.
Okay.
And I brought a considerable number of kids to Michigan State from Oklahoma. The majority of them did not pan out, and I think the weather got most of them.
All right, but there was certainly a talent line, a pool coming from the state of Oklahoma. Now, was the team comprised then of mostly kids from out of the state, or did you also have a good share of kids from the state of Michigan?
It was a Duke's mixture.
Okay.
We had, it didn't make any difference to me where a youngster was from if he was quality material to go after.
Sure.
If you recruit second-rate kids, you're going to be a second-rate team. And we got to get a pipeline into Granby High School in Norfolk, Virginia with a former Michigan State wrestler, Billy Martin, just cranked out kids in state championships down there. And we were fortunate to have a bunch of them come here.
Okay.
And it was the kids were instrumental in winning the first Big Ten championship in '61, and then 66 to '72, there were 7 consecutive years that the kids won the Big Ten championship in NCAA in '67.
And in a moment, we'll talk about some of them individually and how strong those teams were. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what your role was when you first came to Michigan State as an assistant coach? How did you spend your days? Did you teach classes? What?
Yeah, this was, not many people know this. When I came up here and agreed to stay here, Findlay Collins told me, you have to do all the coaching.
Okay.
I was shocked, well, what do you mean I have to do all the coaching? He said, I've had a spinal fusion and I can't get down on the mat. I'll take care of the paperwork, you take care of the coaching. And it was a marriage made in heaven, it just worked out fine. Findlay Collins was probably the most basic Christian I'd ever met. And I never heard the man cuss or use a derogatory words about anybody. Nobody can say those things about me.
Well, a little flair to the personality.
But anyway, it turned out to be a wonderful deal for a young coach. And we won the Big Ten championship that first year in '61. And then we went on later on to have a fantastic success. And you have to recruit. And you have to have the foundation and the funds to recruit with, because you can't get a top-notch kid for less than a full scholarship. And if he can't get it from you, he'll get it from someone else.
Sure.
And we had the greatest of help from Biggie Munn. If it hadn't have been for him, probably would never have had the talent come that we did have, because we were able to offer them help.
Okay.
Yeah, times have changed so much now with the intrusion of the government on athletics that it's really kind of a sad thing.
So back then, you pretty much went about your work, and if you worked hard, you could build yourself a successful program.
Yes, I was associate professor here. Coaches all taught then. Coaches got tenure, academic rank, a good financial retirement system. And moving to Michigan State was the best thing that ever happened to me. Everything I have, everything I ever will have, Todd, I owe to wrestling. And it's just an accident that things fell into place. I could have quit when I was a high school kid because I was discouraged there for a while. And but then I was not the outgoing person. I think there's more introverts in wrestling than any other sport.
Well, let's go to the transition then from assistant coach to head coach. It doesn't seem like it was much of one. You were already doing the instruction.
Yeah, that was, now I had to make all the decisions.
Okay.
And I got Blue Ball to come be my assistant.
He was where at the time?
Michigan.
All right.
He was at Michigan, and we had nothing but the best of relationships, even when he left. I tried to get him not to go to Indiana, but he went anyway. And he turned on his car radio one day and found out he'd been fired down there, and that's how he first got word of it. So, anyway, he'll tell you today that the biggest mistake he ever made was leaving Michigan State. But we're still great friends, and he and Shelby Wilson and all the kids.
How long did Coach Blueblatt coach with you here at Michigan State?
You know, I can't remember the exact number of years, but it was all through those championship years. And he was a great assistant, and you didn't have any trouble turning anything over to him. And we were more like brothers than just friends, and we still are that way.
Now, did you and he fall into distinct roles in your coaching as you and Finley did, or did you more share responsibilities?
We both did the coaching, and and we both did the demonstration, and you know, it was all on my back, so you better take care of business. And so as soon as I walked through that door, I knew exactly what was going to happen every day because I already had it planned out.
Okay.
And we jacked up the heat and started the work. And so
And where was this? Where were you practicing in those days?
where it is right now.
In the same room?
Yeah. We had only 2 mats at the time, and I told Biggie Munn when I first came, I said, we need that wall knocked out so we can have another mat in there. And Biggie said, well, when you win your first Big Ten championship, you can have it. And we won it that year, and I never let him forget.
So he knocked it down for
He
you.
knocked it down, and we put another mat in there, and it's a wonderful wrestling room. Okay. It really is.
And where were your matches, your home matches held right there in IM West?
Yeah, IM West. I still have a nostalgic feeling about IM West because you get the crowd right down on you on both sides, and for the premier matches with Michigan and with the Oklahoma schools, we moved benches, bleachers in on either end and made a little bowl out of it. The opposing coaches just hated it. And if you fell off the mat, you usually fell into somebody's lap, you know. Yeah. But it was great, and I have pictures of the arena there when it was completely packed.
So you had a strong fan base.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then we moved some of the matches when we had to over to Jenison, where they're all held now.
Okay.
But my heart's still in the IM West.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fans were into the matches, and they were knowledgeable, and
yeah, it was wonderful. I would hated to have been there as a visiting team.
Why don't you tell me if you can recall some of the more specific instances in Michigan State wrestling or great moments, maybe at home or on the road of great matches?
We were the first team to go into Oklahoma and wrestle both schools back to back and not lose. We beat Oklahoma and tied Oklahoma State the next night.
On the same road.